Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We're about to start. I'm just going to give a few seconds for more people to join in and we'll get starting, inshallah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We're very excited about today's session, which is Understanding Human Rights and Persecution. And our guest speaker for today is Sister Saleha Faruque. Before we start the session, I would like to invite our Sister Aisha to recite Quran for us to get us started. Sister Aisha, Maryam, we really enjoy hearing her recitation. She's always with us, opening up our sessions with the Quran and Barakah, inshallah. So Sister Aisha is also known as Ashley Petrie. She converted to Islam almost 20 years ago. She's a teacher by trade who worked at several Ottawa Islamic schools and enjoys volunteering in her community. We are also enjoying your volunteering with us as well. She's a former board member of Izza Learning Center, Ottawa's first Quran school for women as well as children. Sister Aisha is a busy mother of four, may Allah bless them, who understands the daily struggles mothers face and appreciates the shared supports from the community. So, Sister Aisha, please go ahead.
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والشمس وضحاها والقمر إذا تلاها والنهار إذا جلاها والليل إذا يغشاها والسماء وما بناها والأرض وما طحاها ونفس وما سواها فألهمها فجورها وتقواها قد أفلح من زكاها وقد خاب من دساها كذبت ثمود بتقواها إذ انبعث أشقاها فقال لهم رسول الله ناقة الله وسقياها فكذبوه فعقروها فدمدم عليهم ربهم بذنبهم فسواها ولا يخاف عقباها. Chapter 91, The Sun. And by the sun and its brightness, and by the moon as it follows, and by the day as it shows up the sun's brightness, and by the night as it conceals it, and by the heaven and him who built it, and by the earth and him who spread it, and by the nafs and him who perfected him in proportion. Then he showed him what is right for him and what is wrong for him. Indeed, he succeeds who purifies his own self, and indeed he fails who corrupts his own self. Thamud denied through their transgression. When the most wicked man among them went forth, but the messenger of Allah said to them, be cautious, fear the evil end. That is the she-camel of Allah, and bar it not from having its drink. Then they denied him, and they killed it. So their Lord destroyed them because of their sin, and made them equal in destruction. And he feared not the consequences thereof.
Thank you so much, Sister Aisha. Jazakallah. So we're really, as I said, we're excited about today's session, which is a topic that usually does not get as much attention in the media and in the social media and the daily lives. So I'm really proud to have our sister Saleha Faruque to speak to us today. Also, Sister Saleha is associated with the organization Justice for All, and we will give you more information. Inshallah, she will walk us through what Justice for All does for the Muslim minorities who are being persecuted. So the plight of indigenous, religious, and ethnic minorities around the world is rapidly worsening due to factors such as discrimination, unequal power structure, and now the global pandemic as well, which we're all experiencing. Additional global dynamics have led to a complex phenomena, many phenomena actually, of genocide and crimes against certain persecuted ethnics and religious minorities. Justice for All Canada, a non-for-profit human rights organization in Toronto, advocates for the basic human rights of the most persecuted Muslim minorities such as the Rohingya, the Uyghurs in East Turkestan, Kashmirs, and Indian Muslims. Operating over 8 years in Canada, hear from and learn about Justice for All Canada's accomplishments, upcoming projects, and how you can become involved in the global involvement against ethnic, racial, and religious persecution. The presentation that Sister Saleha is going to take us through will also cover the importance of effectiveness of activist work when challenging human rights violations, both globally and domestically. So Sister Saleha is a junior international development postgraduate from Toronto with a bachelor in criminology and political science. She has previously volunteered and worked in organizing community services, fundraising, and domestic food security projects, mashallah. She's passionate about helping promote the capacity of diverse communities globally in North America. Sister Saleha also enjoys collaborating with the refugee through skills workshops to help them realize their talents. She has previously contributed to the Medium newspaper as a duty news editor. Sister Saleha currently works at as the communications coordinator for the Justice for All Canada. Please help me welcome Sister Saleha. Assalamu alaikum. I think your microphone is muted.
You're absolutely right about that. I just wanted to kind of repeat and really thank you, Shahinas, for having me and for kind of extending this platform for Justice for All Canada. I also wanted to thank Sister Aisha. I know that she kind of jumped off this stream, but just for her beautiful opening of this this presentation today, I thought it was a great way to start.
Thank you. So without any delay, would you like to start your presentation right now?
Certainly, yeah. And I really wanted to thank everyone kind of calling in or watching in from Calgary. I know that this is such a valued partnership that we're doing with Being Me, but the Calgary branch. So everyone kind of watching from their time zone of 9 a.m. I do appreciate you spending your Sunday morning with Justice for All Canada. Yes, I'm going to go ahead. I do have a couple of slides, like a presentation on which we're going to display a few graphics of our ongoing campaigns, as well as a little bit of education and awareness on the 4 different minorities that we advocate for on a government as well as community level. So I'm going to go ahead and share my slides. Okay, perfect. So at any point in time, if there are, I guess, technical issues, or if you can't see kind of my presentation anymore, feel free just to let me know, inshallah. But once again, welcome to this live presentation of Justice for All Canada. What we're going to be covering today is kind of a generalization, a general picture of our 4 major campaigns right now, as well as how we approach human rights globally, as well as actually a couple of domestic level human rights campaigns that we've recently launched as well. So just in case you haven't heard of our organization, Justice for All Canada is a completely non-governmental, non-profit, as well as non-partisan organization that's a human rights organization as well as an advocacy organization. We are completely nonprofit as well. The main work that we do is various initiatives, campaigns, and petitions for the prevention of human rights violations, as well as awareness and education campaigns to help spread information about ongoing human rights violations, such as genocide, atrocity crimes, as well as war crimes. And what you'll notice with Justice for All Canada, and you'll see this as I kind of go on in the presentation, is that we do try to kind of focus a light on certain minorities that are either ethnic minorities based on their racial background, certainly religious minorities, and another commonality that the kinds of communities that we fight for is that they all either live in a contested land or a contested region of the world, or they are pretty much all indigenous or native to the region that they represent or that they live in. And because of that, they kind of suffer either a strife or civil war based on power holders of that country. So I do look forward to getting into that. Another part of our organization's mandate is trying to enforce accountability of war crimes that are particularly against international laws and international treaties where most countries are a signatory of. So I think I covered kind of Justice for All Canada. I also wanted to mention before moving on is that we are actually an extension of Justice for All in the United States. We have a US-based office that's, I believe, in Chicago, and they've also been doing a lot of great work around the same sort of campaigns that we're doing, except with their work, they try to lobby change from US Congress and under a more US-centric worldview, whereas we work predominantly with Canadian members of parliament and Canadian politicians, political leadership, and Canadian power holders to the best of our ability. So oftentimes whenever we organize events or any sort of online initiatives, especially post-COVID, sometimes you'll notice that a lot of our initiatives are co-joint with Justice for All in the United States, and that is because we are quite a close partner with them. And I just wanted to show you just a visual of a couple of people that are kind of paving that change, leading the way in the United States. So just at the top, we have Adam Carroll, and he is a team member of Justice for All in the United States. He is their UN representative, and he is the liaison with the United Nations when it comes to having important conversations about human rights abuses and where the UN can become involved or to provide our input and the different kind of research and analytical points that we bring to different global genocides and global human rights crises. And just below is Hina Zuberi. Hina is the director of Justice for All in the United States. I'm not sure whether this photograph is in US Congress, but I can confirm that as part of their lobbying efforts and as part of their advocacy and activism, that they have had several meetings in the United States Congress to once again help get the word out there. So I just wanted to talk about our human rights approach when it comes to lobbying the government and certainly doing that through the efforts of the community, both big and small. So each method of advocacy from Justice for All Canada will either start on an individual level, where we utilize the skills, the resources, the talents of people on the ground to either get the word out there or to use their personal connections or their professional or academic connections to either mobilize communities or to organize different activism type events. And then we also, I would say most of the efficiency of our work comes from civic engagement. So community level efforts in terms of getting people together, whether that's through peaceful demonstrations, peaceful rallies. We've done a number of protests in Ottawa, and because of recent physical distancing measures, we've taken a lot of that online. So for example, just yesterday, we had conducted what's called a tweet storm or a Twitter storm, where all of our activists and our volunteers will kind of try to get a certain hashtag trending, just to raise awareness amongst certain people who matter and certain people that can help change the state of certain crimes that are kind of going unnoticed. So for example, what we had done yesterday, once again with our partner in the United States, is raising awareness about illegal labor by big companies such as Apple, Nike, and them using slave labor that comes from different parts of the world that are contested, and using workers that are in detention to make those products. So all about illegal consumerism, or rather unethical consumerism, and I will get to that, and I'll talk more about that throughout our presentation. So with the help of individual community organizing, so using individuals, as well as getting communities together, coalitions, alliances. Our methods include organizing as well as mobilizing. So a predominant method of garnering community support that we rely on, just as really any other comparable human rights organization would be, a good mix between organizing and mobilizing. I just wanted to really quickly go over just a couple of the different methods that we rely on when we begin to work with people, when we make those valuable connections on the ground. So unlike humanitarian organizations, which is something that I think most people are used to seeing out there, there are a number of humanitarian organizations where they will implement projects on the ground for things like emergency relief and provisional items. We work a little bit more differently in that we try to implement change from a more policy level, where governments can intervene and can forcefully change the situation of a people if they are being mistreated. And a lot of times that kind of change will come from community level organizing, advocacy, and just collective voices, putting your opinion out there and kind of calling out something when it's wrong. And that's been really effective for Justice for All Canada. We've been operating for around 8 years now. So for example, the community education initiatives that we do include everything from, panel discussions to lectures. We've done workshops. We also have done creative projects, so creative type initiatives that will also raise awareness out there in the public sphere. So for example, we had recently done a Kashmir related film screening where we had screened a film about the Kashmir crisis, and that film was very uniquely produced by 5 Kashmiri university students. That was really exciting to do. And I think that in the past, especially between the years 2017 up until 2019, which is when I believe Justice for All Canada made its greatest mark, is I believe they had a lot of art exhibits, and I think putting art out there, whether it's visual art or whether it's performance-based art, that's a great way to raise awareness and education about the experiences of a certain community, or the experiences of people that you might not necessarily hear of in your everyday, maybe mainstream news. So a couple of other things that we do, I think I talked about coalition building. So just the efficiency of getting an alliance of like-minded people, like-minded organizations that can put out their combined action for the purpose of starting meaningful conversations with people that can help make that change on once again on a government level. And another thing that as a human rights organization that we do is media monitoring. So we do a lot of research. We do a lot of of analyzing in terms of different reports that are published by certain human rights agencies, there are also genocide agencies out there that do a lot of research. So we do keep our eye out, and especially if it's something relating the 4 campaigns that we work on, which I'll get to very shortly. We really jump at the opportunity to either launch an action alert or to launch an awareness campaign or whatever would make sense for that moment in that time. So just kind of circling back here to some of our major campaigns, and there's another campaign that's not currently on the screen. I'm going to get to that, a little bit of a newer campaign, but we do have a Free Kashmir. So Kashmir is a very hotly contested region in South Asia, contested by both Pakistan and India, and I believe parts of Kashmir are also owned by China. So right now, Kashmiri people are under siege, and they have quite a number of basic human rights that are being withheld from them right now, and we'll also get to that soon. So a couple of our most recent petitions, as well as lobbying efforts and campaigns, have revolved around the issue of Kashmir. Another really big issue, I would say right now, one of our most popular campaigns is our Save Uyghur campaign. So you might be more familiar with the word Uyghur. So Uyghurs are an indigenous community in a region of China called Xinjiang. But to be respectful to the Uyghur community, I want to refer to Xinjiang as the real name of their country, which is East Turkestan. I just wanted to mention that in the news you might rather hear, or you might read of Xinjiang instead of East Turkestan, but for reasons of kind of being in line with cultural requirements, we're going to we like to call it East Turkestan. Especially through our social media and our website, you'll notice that a lot. And in the Uyghur language, Uyghur is pronounced Uyghur. So when I say Uyghur, I mean Uyghurs. So right now, Uyghurs are facing a number of human rights abuses that are quite concerning. Everything from enforced disappearances to mass detentions to even different instances of gender-based violence, as well as population control measures, which I will definitely kind of detail a little bit more as I go on in the presentation. And I'm conscious of my time as well. And of course, I really cannot forget about our Save Rohingya campaign. I believe that Justice for All Canada, we've gained a lot of our traction and a lot of our most loyal volunteers and activists throughout the years through the work that we've done with Rohingya. And I will talk about all of our different successes that we've been able to pull off, especially for Rohingya Muslims, for the Rohingya migrant and refugee crisis. So I talked initially before a little bit about all of the different people that we try to advocate for, the different kind of minorities that we try to defend. They do have commonalities. They do have a few similarities. So throughout this presentation, I wanted to focus a little bit about what are some of the major challenges faced by global minorities, global indigenous minorities, and particularly the religious minorities that we try to advocate for. So throughout our research and our media monitoring, we found that to be persecution is one of the number one things that Rohingyas face, as well as Uyghurs, as well as Kashmiris, displacement as well, so having to flee from their home country and so on and so forth, later having to become refugees or either internally or externally displaced peoples. Another really concerning kind of experience that they all collectively face is either discrimination and racism based on their background and their religious identity, which is a huge force in driving the violence that a lot of them face as well. That's also another shared commonality. So one thing throughout our research and our advocacy campaigns, we found that whenever people share an indigenous or native status, and especially if they live in a region that's contested by two or more, superpowers, they often have to suffer the consequences of it, which is, violence, war crimes, bloodshed. Once again, unfortunately, a lot of gender-based violence. And that's something that I'll try to get into a little bit more throughout the presentation. I do have a point here. It says here, Indigenous peoples of Canada, Quebec Muslims, Christchurch, Ethiopian Muslims. So with Justice for All Canada, our major campaigns focus on global religious and ethnic minorities. But I should add really quickly that once in a while, we do like to lend our voice to other instances of racism and discrimination. So oftentimes we've done so, for example, here in Canada, kind of protesting police brutality and law enforcement of patients who live with mental health challenges. We've lent our voice to a lot of protests and campaigns happening around that subject. And most recently, as you might be aware, in France, Muslims are experiencing a lot of unfair treatment and behavior by officials, by police, particularly raids. They're experiencing raids, and a lot of them are being deported for no reasons. These are French Muslim citizens of France. So that's also something that we've launched a campaign around, and I will try to preview that soon as well. So I think I talked a little bit about genocide. At Justice for All Canada, I often like to introduce our campaigns and our different petitions as tools of awareness and tools of prevention for what's called atrocity crime. So atrocity crime is the major umbrella definition, and then serious, illegal international crimes like genocide, like war crimes, as well as crimes against humanity will fall under that. I find that atrocity crimes and genocide, as well as crimes against humanity, really carry the same definition, and it's something that's part of our mandate. So it's predominantly when there are specific communities out there that experience either direct or indirect actions that contribute to the erasure or getting rid of certain cultural parts of them, or just actually having their lives targeted based on who they are or where they come from. I think it's in particularly just kind of targeting a certain ethnic group with the aim of wiping out that group, and with the aim of kind of eliminating that certain race from whatever region that you're focusing on. So that's something that we try to look out for at Justice for All Canada. I always notice that there are, a number of crises happening around the world, but we try to really target our focus and our resources and our campaigns towards specifically modern day genocide and genocide of people that are persecuted based on their religious background and their religious beliefs. So this is just a map that shows the three different kind of localities that we focus on and where our campaigns try to target. And I mean, coincidentally, South Asia, with a little bit of the southeastern part of Asia will contain where a lot of our efforts are focused. So like, once again, Uyghurs in East Turkestan. We also do a lot of awareness and education campaigns of Indian Muslims facing discrimination, as well as violence, as well as gender-based violence in India. And of course, as you can see there, Burma, otherwise known as Myanmar, which contains the Rakhine state, which is normally home to Rohingya Muslims who unfortunately had to flee in the hundreds of thousands. They had to leave their homeland of Burma because they were escaping persecution. So I wanted to touch a little bit upon the Save India campaign. This is kind of a newer effort that we're focusing on. So we typically have our initiatives around Burma, Rohingya, Uyghurs, as well as Kashmir. But lately, we've been kind of really maximizing the education and the awareness campaigns specifically around Indian Muslims, as well as various different minorities in India that are facing religious violence, particularly Muslims, I should say. And this violence has been occurring frequently in the form of lynchings, so mob lynchings, for example, and that's been occurring at the hands of nationalist Hindu mobs that are kind of committing a pattern of sporadic violence between Hindu and Muslim communities, where the Muslim communities are predominantly being targeted. And I would say that a reason for that is right now the current government, I would categorize that, or characterize them rather, as a nationalist type government, a Hindu majority government, with these sort of ideologies of wanting to make India more of a Hindu majority. And in doing that, they've launched a number of very discriminatory policies, citizenship policies, for example, that are aimed at further isolating Muslims coming into India, as well as, of course, isolating and alienating Indian Muslims within India itself. So through our Save India campaign, we do try to raise awareness through advocacy, as well as petitions, I should say, and letter writing campaigns to Canadian members of Parliament about the current Indian Prime Minister and his sort of populist motives, and as well as the militant groups that are kind of ongoing, in an ongoing way, targeting Indian Muslims in the area, as well as the rising force of religious attacks on Indian Muslims. And really one of a huge example of the kind of campaign that we're doing for Indian Muslims is regarding the suppression of free speech in the country. So you might have heard that at Amnesty International India, it was one of the only human rights agencies that was really working hard to do something quite similar to what we've been doing here in Canada, which is revealing the discrimination and the violence occurring against Indian Muslims in major cities. And unfortunately, what the government has done is they have, in a very major way, suppressed their ability to get the word out there by freezing their assets, by making it very hard for them to function, in the sense that they completely had to seize their office. And a lot of their the activities that they do, I believe that their office was also raided. Their volunteers, the Amnesty International India volunteers were, I believe, they were attacked. They had also been threatened by police officials as well. So whenever that happens against activists, it's a very clear sign of suppressing freedom of speech. And so what we've done is we've launched our Stand With Amnesty India campaign. These campaigns are ongoing, and you can participate in them as well. It's a really easy system of signing a campaign, as well as participating in an automated kind of structure that we've designed of calling your local member of parliament. So we've prepared like a short script for you, and and once you call in, we kind of connect you with your local member of parliament automatically, just so you could leave them a short message about expressing your concerns about the human rights violations in India. And very interestingly, so I live in Milton, and I had participated particularly in one of these campaigns where I wrote to, through the Justice for All Canada kind of automated campaign structure. I wrote to our local MP here, and it was regarding the crimes in Kashmir, and I actually got a response back from our local member of parliament, and it was, I think his name is Adam, and I think, and it was really great how he had responded, sharing, his concerns for Kashmir, and kind of pledging his support to help wherever he could. So that was that's one of the highlights of kind of doing this kind of work is really getting through to those power holders and using them as a liaison to communicate with the federal government eventually. So just keeping in mind my limited time here, I really wanted to focus on the campaign that I said was really gaining a lot of traction right now, which is our Save Uyghur campaign, from cultural genocide as well as outright genocide of Uyghur minorities in China. So just in case you didn't know too much about the Uyghur population, I just wanted to really quickly recap that Uyghurs are a Turkic ethnic group. They're not Chinese, they are a Turkic ethnic group. They live in East Turkestan, which is a part of China. And they had originated from different parts of Central and East Asia, and they are once again native and indigenous to the land. So Uyghurs are obviously a majority in their country of East Turkestan. They're a little over 12,123,000 Uyghurs in East Turkestan. I believe there are around 60,000 Uyghurs in Turkey, and the next most populous country where they live in at around 55,000 is Uzbekistan. So if you actually look into East Turkestan, and if you look into the Uyghur population, they have a very rich cultural history. They have a really beautiful culture as well. And I think in the past, Justice for All Canada has been involved in even setting up cultural pavilions at public events to display some of that culture and that tradition. So for centuries, their tradition has revolved around agriculture and trade. And I believe that the famous Silk Road, like the silk trading road that you hear about in history, that thrived through a part of their country as well. So just moving on to the different kinds of evidence of genocide that's currently ongoing. And this is something that our organization is spending the most of our time on, is raising awareness, as well as trying to affect real action for government to intervene in the current human rights crisis. For example, we've been asking for sanctions to be taken out on China because of the different abuse that the Uyghurs are currently facing. So I just wanted to quickly recap, according to a number of credible reports, places of worship in East Turkestan, specifically mosques, have been either destroyed or burned down. I believe that the country started off with around 24,000 mosques, and now they're down to around 18,000, a lot of them that are kind of partially damaged or broken. So unfortunately, we've heard reports of population control coming out of East Turkestan. So in other words, gender-based violence and measures to slash birth rates in half or curb birth rates of their growing Muslim population. I don't want to get into too much detail, but their different population control methods include things like pregnancy tests, forced sterilization, and even forced abortion that we've been hearing, unfortunately, really disturbing reports coming out of the country. And over here, I have a couple of images of actual mosques that were up and running and that have been either burnt down or shut down or damaged either fully or in part. And I think I mentioned 18,000 mosques were remaining. I believe the real number is 15,000 mosques, unfortunately, are currently standing, with more than half of them damaged at this time. So just quickly touching upon the current crisis in the re-education camps. So in addition to the crimes that I had just mentioned, another huge issue that's currently, obviously a huge crime against international law is enforced disappearance, as well as a mass detention of Uyghur men, as well as women in these quote unquote re-education camps. And we have a few photos of that were actually released by the government, the Chinese government, of Uyghur men in these camps. So what you see here is a screenshot of a recent campaign that we launched towards the Canadian Globe and Mail. And we found that, for example, the Globe and Mail had recently published pro-China produced media within this Canadian newspaper without considering the fact that China media often kind of glosses over or completely disregards to mention the different human rights suffering that's occurring of the Uyghur population in their country. So we put out an action alert. This was a letter writing campaign to Globe and Mail, and a lot of people had participated in this. So this is an example of the kind of petitions that we do. We try to put them out in real time when a crisis is happening, just so we could get the most amount of traction. Another effort that we had undertaken on behalf of Uyghurs is meeting with a local member of parliament. And I just want to quickly introduce who's in the photo here. Just starting from my left is our executive director, Taha Ghayur, at the leftmost side. And beside him is Hassan Qazi, who is one of our board members. And then just in the middle there is the member of parliament, that's Garnet Jenis. And one thing that's been really cool is his ongoing effort to actually help bring the foreign minister's attention to the plight of Uyghurs, and to try to really kind of enforce those sanctions to help kind of curb these mass human rights violations that we're talking about. And so what we had done is we had met with him. We'd also interviewed him live on a television segment called Canada Today, which airs on Muslim Network TV, which you can find on YouTube. And we told him a lot about, or we explained to him rather a lot about the work that we've been doing on behalf of Uyghurs. And we kind of shared resources as well as different ideas on how we can come together. So him as a member of parliament, and us as a human rights and advocacy group. And something that has led to, I'm really happy to say, is a very historic day in Parliament, where through the leadership of the Honourable Garnet Jenis, a total of 9 members of Parliament all across Canada had stood up during a parliamentary session, and they presented petitions to the foreign minister, petitions where each of them had gained signatories from their own constituents, kind of enforcing the need for sanctions against China. I'm going to try to wrap up in as fast as I can. I know that I'm definitely limited on time, but I wanted to at least touch upon our Kashmir campaign. So a little bit about Kashmir. Kashmir is obviously a contested region that's held between India and Pakistan. A small part of Kashmir, of course, is owned by China. Kashmir has been under a 72-year conflict. And it's fought, I believe, 3 major wars over the disputed territory. So the current issue that we're focusing on when it comes to Kashmir is the ongoing genocide and the apartheid type regime, specifically occurring within the Indian administered part of Kashmir. So what India is currently doing is mimicking a sort of settler colonialism situation where Hindus are coming in illegally and either buying land or kind of creating residential buildings in parts of Kashmir that's indigenous to the Kashmiri people. So that's against the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and a number of our awareness and our education building campaigns is meant to kind of raise action towards that, as well as hoping for prevention and ceasefire, as well as halting of the mass violence taking place. So just focusing on a few other human rights violations taking place in Kashmir as well. So the human rights issues, specifically violence, is an ongoing problem that we try to work on here at Justice for All Canada. The abuses that Kashmiri people face range from mass killings to as well as enforced disappearances, just like the Uyghurs. They do face torture at the hands of Indian administered officials. There is unfortunately quite a lot of gender-based violence that is experienced by Kashmiri women and Kashmiri girls. There is also political repression as well as that suppression of freedom of speech. And I think we just spoke about Amnesty International India being shut down. And we believe that one of the many reasons why they were shut down is because they were one of the only human rights agencies that were talking about the abuses being administered in Kashmir. So this is just a screenshot of one of our successful campaigns or letter writing campaigns for Kashmir. So asking your local MP to demand action on Kashmir. And this is also something that's still up and running and that you can participate in. Last but not least, I wanted to talk about the renewed genocide regarding the Rohingya refugees. Obviously, Justice for All Canada has had a lot of success with our past work when it comes to dealing with Rohingya refugees. We are just about set to release our impact report regarding the last couple of years, and a lot of that success is going to be highlighted in that impact report. And I'll see if I can kind of come back and share it on this event page as soon as it's ready. However, we've been really concerned that recently the persecution of Rohingya Muslims has been unfortunately on the way to being renewed, with Myanmar military officials not cooperating with either sharing information, not being fully transparent. And of course, the biggest thing was how Rohingya, which are a minority in their country of Burma, were completely not allowed to vote in the most recent election. So complete lack of democracy for Rohingya. This is an example of a letter writing campaign that we launched to the Indian Parliament. So as we know, Rohingyas are, internally displaced people as well as migrants all across Southern Asia. And there are quite a number of Rohingya in India, and where they face discrimination because of India's citizenship policy, which currently does not extend citizenship to Muslim migrants. So one thing that we've actually been able to do is launch a letter writing campaign directly to in the Indian Parliament, where you can express to them why they should better protect and secure protection and refuge for Rohingya refugees. So I think that after going through a lot of our ongoing campaigns and certainly what's quite popular right now, I was able to cover the different ways that we work. So one of the most common questions that I receive from interested activists or from interested volunteers is how they can get involved. Justice for All Canada does have a number of volunteer opportunities that we've been able to renew and release, just especially due to the new post-COVID situation. So that's something that you can definitely get involved in through our website at justiceforallcanada.org. Just go over to our volunteer page. Please feel free to sign up, and we'll be in contact with you as we do currently are looking for some volunteer help for our growing campaigns. And over here, you see once again a number of different ways that we work together with our volunteers to help spread awareness and spread the need for prevention. Initially, I spoke a little bit about our efforts for French Muslims that are experiencing discrimination and attacks in France. This is the campaign that we had launched. So you can write a letter to the French ambassador here in China, as well as a letter to the foreign minister. And that's once again still up and running, and you can sign the 2 letters. I really wanted to kind of give a picture of the kinds of events that we had done in the past. So I believe that this was a Kashmir-related protest in Ottawa. And this was either 2018 or 2019, but a few really good images came out of that. And here is just a list of our ongoing volunteer ways to help, as well as a picture of another member of parliament, Honorable Yasmin Ratansi. And recently she also, after very many years of Kashmir never being raised in Canadian Parliament, she kind of presented a petition as well to the foreign minister about the importance of Canada intervening in Kashmir to try to halt the violations occurring. And just once again, the URL of our website, as well as our email if you had any questions, and the names of our 3 major campaigns, as well as I think Rohingya is not on there, but for now we are currently recruiting volunteers for our OIFR campaign, our Save India campaign, and our Free Kashmir campaign. And as the situation of Rohingya refugees is currently developing, we will definitely contact you if you express on your volunteer application form that you would like to do something regarding Rohingyas. And I really wanted to take this moment to once again thank Being Me Calgary. I went a little bit over time, unfortunately. I'm sorry about that, Shahinaz, but I'll hand it over to you for, I believe, question answer if we have any time.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. Really, it was a very rich presentation that kind of like leaves us very heavy-hearted about what's happening in these communities. And I found it very informative because many of these populations, we don't even know how to pronounce the proper name of the population or what's their actual origin. Like you have pointed out that certain ethnicities are being like misconcepted, or people think, oh, they're Chinese, but they're not actually Chinese. It's supposed to be called East Turkestan. So really, I really appreciate the information, and I think there is some call to action that needs to happen and take place as well. So I know that you've already made great presentation around what Justice for All does, and I hope we can keep this screen up a little bit for our followers or people who are watching. And if you don't mind, just from your side to take down the slide, so we can go back to check our questions and our announcements as well. Thank you. So I'm just going to monitor the questions and ask our audience to drop down your comments or questions while we're preparing here. So I see a question here while we're preparing for our to just put up the Justice for All poster. There is a question. I think you have already touched on it, but just if you have anything else to add. The question says that how can we possibly help if we're not engaged in activism as individuals? Like, I'm a mother sitting at home and I want to support our Muslims who are being, persecuted. What are the things that I can help with?
I mean, that's a really great question. And I find that regardless who you are, whether you're an activist or even a non-activist or professional or non-professional, it's something these human rights tragedies is something that leaves us feeling the same, which is kind of helpless and feeling like, is there anything that I can do? And I've certainly learned that through the work of human rights organizations, whether it's us or maybe an organization like even Amnesty International Canada, I think that the different resources and tools that are put out there to mobilize people either on an individual level or on a collective level can be very actually effective. So believe it or not, sending one letter through one of our automated letter writing campaigns, or leaving one voicemail to your local member of parliament, it makes a huge difference in kind of adding your voice to a number of others, because unfortunately that's the way that global politics works. It's kind of just a platform of placing pressure and on different actors and demanding accountability. And once we do that enough, you'd be surprised, the impact that you can have. So I would say that if you're feeling helpless, I think that a lot of people are as well. And for example, even when we had our meeting with Garnet Jennis, who's a member of parliament, even though he's a political leader himself, he was even talking about feeling frustrated about his request for sanctions not being taken seriously by the Canadian government. So I think that one more of the Canadian communities to come together, demanding that Canada live up to its international obligations of peace and its international obligations to the treaties that it signed, just like the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, or even just like the Genocide Convention. I do think that puts pressure on the government to act fast. So I think that it's just a matter of campaigning and mobilizing and organizing that people can help. And the good thing is that you can always participate in a big way if you have the time or the inclination, or you can participate in a small way. And I don't think that one is better or more effective than another. I really think at the end of the day, it's those numbers at the end of the day that come together, and that collective impact.
Great, thank you. So as we have now the Follow Justice for All Canada card is up there. For those who have just joined or may have not been listening to the presentation from the beginning, it is recorded, and you can just visit our website, our Being Me Facebook page, as well as Instagram, and it will be posted. So just a quick briefing on Justice for All. Justice for All Canada is a Canadian non-for-profit human rights and advocacy organization challenging the persecution of global ethnic, religious, and indigenous minorities facing oppression and crimes against humanity. As a grassroots group, Justice for All Canada uses peaceful advocacy and collective action to promote human rights violation awareness and education among Canadians, while influencing policy-level change to bring lasting security and peace to marginalized communities around the world. So I think that description that you have provided as well is really helpful, because sometimes when people think of activism, they think of the things we watch on TV of like burning buildings and violence. So it's very important that you underscored the peaceful advocacy, and I think that's the most effective way to advocate. So if we can take down the slide for Justice for All, please. And back to Sister Saleha and the questions. So there's one more question here is asking about, does Justice for All accept donations? Is there something tangible that people can do?
Certainly. So on our website, justiceforallcanada.org/donate, we do accept donations, and I think that it should be part of the description that's on the event page. So I just wanted to add quickly that all of the funding that we raise, as well as any kind of support, goes towards funding all of these human rights campaigns to increase their efficiency and to increase their impact.
Great. So one more question, I think that's the last question, is that in terms of raising awareness, because as we said, there is not that much media focus or social media focus on those issues that you have just raised. So how can we as individuals or Muslims in our communities and our personal social media, how can we raise the awareness or increase the raising of awareness?
I think that's a really great question. So earlier, didn't have too much time to go over this, but one of the many ways that we mobilize support and that we organize, one of the biggest functions of a human rights agency is actually media monitoring. So it is actually looking at the news and seeing, for example, if a recent human rights violation was committed, first of all, was it covered? And if it was covered, how was it covered? Was it covered in a very fair way, or were there points missing? Were there, did it look like there was any kind of censorship? So this is part of the media monitoring that we do. There's a research aspect to it, there's an analysis aspect to it, but what's really cool about that, about media monitoring, I think, is that you don't have to be part of a human rights organization, and I don't even think that you need to have really any kind of journalistic skill to do that. So if, for example, you notice that something was covered either partially or not, or incorrectly, nowadays it's really easy to write a letter to your editor through your newspaper, or through an online newspaper. There are different ways to ask the media and to ask news agencies to actually cover something. And one of the major ways to do that is, of course, to hold, peaceful protests out there, and which news agencies, in my experience, typically cover. And that's a great way to increase awareness. As, oh, there was some demonstration, in Toronto City Hall. I wonder what that was for. And that's, in my opinion, how people learn about different things that the media isn't covering. So, for example, November and December are 2 months where all of the Uyghur Canadian Toronto community are coming together to hold public demonstrations across the GTA, as well as across different parts of Canada, I should say. And what's really interesting about that is every single time a media agency picks it up, I believe a number of new Canadians will learn about the crisis in a more accurate way. So I think they're, once again, really big and small, direct and indirect ways to help increase or put the word out there through media. And it's not something that anybody should feel helpless in regards to. If you can't organize a rally, that's okay. It doesn't hurt to leave a comment sometimes on a news report, or send an email, or even just write a letter to your editor. And those are often taken seriously.
Thank you so much. That's really helpful. And I would say we're going to be following Justice for All website and Twitter accounts as well, so we can retweet and just get the lead from your organization. So I really want to thank you. I can't thank you enough today, Sister Saleha, for joining us and just giving us that amazing information, and to support our brothers and sisters who are under persecution. And I think also making dua is the thing that it's a weapon that every Muslim has. So if we can't do anything except making dua, may Allah inshallah accept all our duas for them and help them throughout their hardship. So follow Justice for All website, and we're going to also post the donation link in our comments on Facebook Live. Thank you so much, Sister Saleha. So before we close up, we have a few announcements to make under our month of social justice. So we have our Girl Talk happening at 1 p.m. today. So please join us with Sister Fariha Chowdhury. And also there is another session coming up, with two actually sessions that are coming up, but we're very excited for having Sister Rabia Kadir joining us tomorrow at 11 Eastern Time, speaking about creating an inclusive community, specifically justice for people with disabilities, and how we can create a more inclusive community at 11 o'clock. At 9 p.m. Eastern Time, we have Sister Yasmin Yusuf joining us for a journey on embracing justice through the names of Allah. So please join us, check our website, or you can just attend on at Being Me Facebook page. So we're going to close up inshallah with our dua. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Thank you so much for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of your day.